Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 5 4 key game picks. Before we get into Week number 5, Week number 4 was kind of an interesting Week number 4, to say the least. I mean, there's a lot of things you could pick out. I mean, I don't want to get into too much of what happened in Week number 4, but I thought the couple things that really stood out to me, obviously, number 1 was the Buffalo Bills dominating the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins finally came down to earth, and everything came crashing to a screeching halt, putting up 70 points against the Broncos in Week number 3, and all of a sudden, the Dolphins falling flat. I think it was more of a, I think this was for the Dolphins. They blew their chance to possibly overthrow the Bills here, to see who will have control of that AFC East division, given the fact that the Jets are terrible. Patriots are going downhill after they got embarrassed by the Cowboys. I mean, you look at this division, the Dolphins had their chance to possibly take over this division, but there's no question right now the Bills made a huge statement, beating the Dolphins and putting them right back down to earth, given the fact after they embarrassed the Broncos the Broncos are a mess, and we all knew that. As I said last week, I think the Bills offense will finally give the Dolphins fits. And the Bills defense did a great job on Miami, and they really got to Tula in that game. So yeah, well, obviously the Bills did lose White, one of their key players on defense, to a torn Achilles, so he's done for the season. It's kind of unfortunate because that's kind of a blow to their defense, because he has been one of their biggest playmakers in that defense now. So it's tough to say where the Buffalo defense will go from here, because now their defense is getting a little stretched thin now. But other than that, they really dominated the Dolphins. I look back at the Jets and Chiefs game, which a lot of people thought it was going to be the ultimate, one of the, possibly a game that possibly the Chiefs could put up a 70 burger themselves. Didn't really happen. You have to give Zach Wilson a ton of credit here. They fought hard in that game, and they really did give the Chiefs quite a football game. But in the end, the Chiefs were technically the better team, and surprisingly, they only won by a field goal. And obviously, if you're a sports betting person, obviously, a lot of people got angry at Patrick Mahomes. He could have scored a touchdown right there, because the Chiefs were a 9.5-point favorite. They would have covered the spread right there. But Patrick Mahomes could care less about, let's be real, all these NFL players, I mean, they could care less about your bets. Let's be real. And how about the Detroit Lions making their own statement against the Packers? Have we finally see a changing of the guard in that division? Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is not there anymore. The Packers, surprisingly, were in the football game. I mean, the Lions dominated them in the first half of that game, but the Packers and Jordan Love really did a good job of crawling back. But in the end, the Lions pretty much finished them off. So I kind of say it's slowly starting to be a changing of the guard in that NFC North division, where the Lions now are definitely going to be the team to beat in that division. There's a lot of these that I could talk about. Obviously, I don't want to get into what happened with that Raider-Charger game. Obviously, Brandon Staley being bonehead again, going for it on fourth down, and his defense bailing him out again. I don't know how much longer that Charger defense is going to say enough is enough, Staley. We had enough of bailing you out. Eventually, we're gonna give it up for you. So yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, there's a ton of things you could talk about in week number 4, but there's just too many to go on here, and I gotta try to keep this video as short as possible. Let's just get into week number 5. To be quite honest, if you look at week 5 schedule, a lot of these games are pretty predictable, to be honest here. And this wasn't easy for me to say which I figure may be the good games of the week, but these are my 4 key games here, so bear with me on this video here. Alright, let's talk about key game number 1, and that is the Jaguars versus the Buffalo Bills. Jaguars' second week in London. Obviously, London has really become more of their adaptive home than Jacksonville has really become. And you would think maybe they have some sort of an advantage. Now, the Jaguars finally got off the schneid, finally getting a victory, a much-needed win. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, 23 of 30, 207 yards, 1 touchdown pass. Finally, the offense got back on track. And I would say their offense is going to need to get more on track now. Now that you have a dangerous Buffalo Bills team traveling across the pond to play in London that you have to play up against. And look, I'll be honest with you. I think this game's going to be good. The Bills are a 5.5-point favorite in this one here. Josh Allen was 21 of 25, 320 yards, 4 touchdown passes in the big victory over the Dolphins. It's going to boil down to the Jacksonville defense. Can they get to Josh Allen here? I'm talking about quarterback Josh Allen. I know on the Jaguars defense there's a player that's also named Josh Allen. But I'm talking about Josh Allen, the quarterback of the Bills here. Can that Jaguars defense get to him? As I said when I talked about this video, the Bills defense is going to be kind of thin now given the fact they lost Tre'Davious White to injury. That's kind of one of their key playmakers on defense here. And who knows if Hyde is going to be healthy in this game, because they definitely need him to make some plays themselves. I expect this game to be very close. No question. The Jaguars are going to be desperate for victories right now because they've been off to a slow start. And they definitely am going to be playing like a desperate football team. But the way the Bills have played in the last 3 games, they're going to be tough to beat here. It's a close game, no question, and I think this odds should be maybe a little bit lower, probably 5, maybe 4.5, maybe by the time it's kickoff. It's a tough pick here, but I think the Bills are a much better team. I think I'm going to pick the Buffalo Bills here. Forgive my stuttering here. The way the Bills have been playing right now, they're playing lights out. And this is a team that's finally getting back in the groove. They're getting back to their rhythm. The Bills, they're on a mission. And the way they're playing right now, they are definitely going to be they're definitely playing like the team that's supposed to be a Super Bowl contender. It's going to be, I say it's going to be tough for that Jaguar defense to get to Josh Allen and him making plays. Trevor Lawrence really had to finally step up last week against the Falcons to make some plays. But I think in this one here, the Bills are going to be just a little bit too much for the Jaguars here. I'm going to pick the Bills in this one here. It's going to be a very close game here, but I'm say the Bills are going to pull it out here. The Bills have a much better offense than the Jaguars do, and I'm going to pick the Bills in this one here. Bills over the Jaguars. Key game number 2, going into the AFC South. It is the Tennessee Titans versus the Indianapolis Colts. This pick here, if you look at the current odds maker, it's either going to be pick'em status or most of the odds makers have the Colts as a 1-point favorite. So it's tough. This is a 50-50 game. It could go either way. Ryan Tannehill in a big victory over the Bengals last week was 18 of 25, 240 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Obviously, he had a lot of help from Derrick Henry. That running game really was the key factor in them beating the Bengals. Now, the Colts got into quite a football game in the second half. They trailed earlier in their game against the Rams, but Anthony Richardson, 11 of 25, 20 yards, 2 touchdowns. He came alive in the second half, but their defense just couldn't stop the Rams in the end, and they ended up losing in overtime. This is actually a key game in the AFC South because everybody in that AFC South is even at 2-2. Basically all tied for first place. So basically for this one here, this game really is somewhat important as to who will at least be above 500 and who's going to be below 500 after this game. It's a 50-50 game given the fact that the Colts have played fairly well in their last 4 games, and they should be fortunate they're not under 500 right now. Same thing with the Titans. I think it boils down to whichever team makes better plays and which defense will step up. Tough to say who wins this one here, but I'm gonna say the Colts I'm gonna say the Colts are gonna beat the Titans here. Anthony Richardson has really come alive. He's really making some plays, and this is without Taylor. Given the fact that the Colts have played better than we anticipated here. The Titans really have a lot of struggles in their last 4 games in the 4 games that they played. For some reason, I don't know where their offense stands at this point. Given the fact they got fortunate on a victory against the Chargers, and they really pinned down the Bengals as they're really banged up, given Joe Burrow's health. I mean, you look at this game here. It's 50-50 who wins this game here. I'm going to say the Colts win, but this is not a sure pick. Colts by as favored by 1 to beat the Titans here. This game will go either way, but this really is about who will be above 500 still after this football game in that AFC South division. I'm going to pick the Colts here. It's not a sure pick here. I think the way that they're really playing much better than anticipated, and it wouldn't surprise me if they beat the Titans here. It's a tough pick here. I'm going to say the Colts beat the Titans. All right, key game number 3. The Philadelphia Eagles versus the Rams. The Eagles are a 4.5-point favorite, and I would say that they got this odds right on this one here, but the way the Eagles played last week against the Commanders, there's a lot of question marks regarding their offense and where they stand. Not only that, how the defense has played. Jalen Hurts was 25 of 37, 319 yards, 2 touchdowns. Luckily, he had no interceptions in that game. Now, Matthew Stafford was 27 of 40, 319 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception in an overtime victory over the Colts. A lot of this is going to boil down to the point here. Who's going to make the plays in this one here? Just like Tennessee and Indianapolis, as I mentioned earlier. I just think the Eagles have the better offense, given the fact that the Rams right now, if they can get Cooper Kupp back, they're going to be a tough team to beat, even though they really should be in the rebuilding mode. Nuka has been quite a wide receiver for the Rams. And I guarantee he's going to make some good plays here coming up in this football game here. This is going to be a close game here. I think this will be closer than people will anticipate. The Eagles offense is really struggling to get their identity going, even though they're undefeated right now. And the Rams are really starting to play like the old Rams. Well, I'm not going to say they're going to be on a Super Bowl run or anything, but given the fact they're starting to become the Rams that have been playing to a level they had a couple years back. A lot of it's going to determine if the Rams defense can get to Jalen Hurts here. I think this game will definitely go back and forth. This is not a gimme for the Eagles. The Rams are playing at a level that I didn't anticipate. It's tough to say who wins this one here because I think that Jalen Hurts and the Eagles and their offense is just a tad better than Matthew Stafford's offense. It's a tough pick here, but I'm going to pick the Philadelphia Eagles here. I think the Eagles will beat the Rams in this one here. I think it's going to boil down, can the Rams stop Jalen Hurts? For this pick, I'm going to pick the Eagles over the Rams. And finally, key game number 4. I'm pretty sure a lot of you know what I'm going to talk about here. The big one here. The Dallas Cowboys versus the San Francisco 49ers. The Niners are a 3.5-point favorite, and it definitely will get lower. I would say maybe 3, maybe 2.5, maybe even 2. Dak Prescott in a big victory over the Pats, 28 of 34, 261 yards, 1 touchdown. For the 49ers, Brock Purdy was 20 of 21, 283 yards, 1 touchdown. Decent stats in a game which I thought that they would have put up maybe a 30 or 40 burger on the Cardinals. But surprisingly, the Cardinals played them well in the first half of that game, but then the Niners pulled away in the second half of that game. This is going to boil down to who makes the plays in this one here. Both defenses are on par with each other. But to me, I think the Niners have the better defense than the 49ers do. I mean, the 49ers have the better defense than the Cowboys do. Forgive me for my stuttering again. Let me repeat. I personally think the 49ers have the better defense than the Cowboys do. But both their defenses are on par. And a lot of it is going to be if they can get to the quarterback. It's a 50-50 pick, in my opinion, who wins this football game here. But the way I look at it right now, the Niners have beaten the Cowboys. They basically have owned them in the last few years. Especially when I mean own them, they owned them twice already in the postseason last season and the season before that. It's hard for me to go against the 49ers here. The 49ers to me are slightly better than the Cowboys here, but it's definitely going to be a very close game on Sunday night here. It's going to be a good one in Santa Clara. This game could be the game of the year right here, and it's only week 5. But it's tough to say here. It's a 50-50 pick who wins this football game here. But personally, I think the Niners defense is a tad better than the Cowboys defense. But even though, to me, they're on par with each other. But I think, to me, the 49ers will barely beat the Cowboys here. I'm picking the 49ers here at minus 3.5 in this one here. I think, to me, the 49ers, they've owned the Cowboys in the last few years. And I think, to me, until they find a way to beat the 49ers, and definitely it's got to be done in the postseason, the NFC my opinion, still going to run through San Francisco. It's going to be a close game on Sunday night, but no question. I'm going to pick the 49ers in this one here. I think they beat the Cowboys here. All right, everybody, that wraps up my 4 key game picks for week number 5. Please check the description below for all of my week 5 picks. And until then, everybody, I'll talk to you guys next week when I make my picks for week number 6. Take care and enjoy your NFL weekend.